can show the online guests whom we have here in person.
Oh yes, it's
Do you want to present?
Martin de Jong, professor of Erasmus University, our supervisor from scientific part. Michel Boms, he is a person from construction industry, but with very deep knowledge in linked data, which is extremely important here. And he is my guru in TNO, because TNO is a big organization. I don't know how to maneuver that. And Sibren, it's it's a new member of our team. He is from consulting, and well, because the project is quite, again, it's about organizational innovation. Consultants are very much welcome here, and so Sibren will help us. Good. Okay, guys. And we have here also people from culture and heritage. It's Pavel Katz actually, and Anna Meyers. From Royal Library, is it the right name? I always
Royal Library, that sounds good.
yeah. Actually, a funny thing that
that's okay.
Royal Library is the only place in Netherlands which created already its own solid service for cultural institutions. So while we are talking about big strategic things, library already have it. Well, of course there are some. It's not so black and white, but these guys made quite progress. So I thought, and we need him. And we expect here, Maxim joined, Maxim Platonov from Vion. Vion is actually a holding company which owns several mobile operators around the globe, probably 5 of them. And mobile operators have some interest in these post platforms, and we discussed it intensively with Maxim during December and January. We even signed we prepared a proposal for mobile operators, which was accepted. Well, but the war delayed our plans, unfortunately, but we'll move on. Stanislav Ronjan is also our linked data specialist. It's part of our team and our connector with Dutch cadaster. And he is a person with whom we created the concept of data space. We just discovered in December when we tried to answer some tough questions from Dutch cadaster. So Stanislav, thank you for that. So today we are discussing this. Okay, guys.
And Alexander Aginsky, he's working with us with the Jewish Heritage Network. He's from Pangianic, Spanish company, which is a machine translation specialist in Europe and also technical partner in our aggregation project in Europeana.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we also expect René Meijs from Leer Unique. Leer Unique, it's a Dutch, one of the largest Dutch educational platforms. He's probably delayed on the previous meeting. He promised me to be here. And Leer Unique we already met with them. They are interested in exploring this possibility to employ post platforms because they are a platform from one side, so they like to keep data to themselves, but they are more calculation platform which applies some artificial intelligence, and they need a lot of data which belongs to other platforms. So they are quite interested in sharing data between platforms. Yeah, but data space is definitely in their interest. Okay, so as you see, we try to collect today people from very many domains, industries, and there is a purpose in that, because we believe that the idea of data space, it doesn't belong to some specific industry like construction or education, whatever. It's quite ubiquitous. It's like web technology. I mean, question where you can apply web technology everywhere. So this also could be applied everywhere. But it's more than that. We believe that when post platforms will deploy, it will be not like it's used in different industries. It will be quite a mixture of industries in the same projects, and I will try to show it. Okay, so my idea was that I will remind you the idea of data space, probably in 20 minutes or so, and then the most tricky part, we will talk to you, and I expect questions, so please come up with questions, please come up with cases of your industry. So sounds like, okay guys, I have this and that, what shall we do here in construction or education? So I saw that we need a kind of start of multi-domain discussion, and it's not easy, so probably it will not go easily, but I would like to have this start. Okay, so let's go. I decided to start from a simple picture which we see in the industry which I know very well. It's culture and heritage. You know that I have this platform Easy Travel. We started almost 10 years ago, so we are pretty good in all this museum interactions and problems. And how we see the picture? Imagine we have different museums, bottom, 10 of them, whatever, and we have different platforms which museums have to use every day. Some museums use one platform, some museums use other platforms, but in the end of the day, every museum, every day, they have to upload their data to different platforms. And they are not happy with that, and it was a very interesting meeting we had 2 months ago with one of the largest museums in the world, and they collected all platform providers like us and asset management systems, and the guy, the IT director of the museum, he said, guys, I am sick and tired of uploading data to very many platforms, and it's different copies of this data, so I'm completely lost. I don't want to go on like that. I want to do the following. I want to set up my own server, like web server, whatever, I don't care. I'll put there all my data, pictures, photographs, descriptions, storytelling, everything. And you guys, platforms, you take it from there. I will provide you some API, whatever, but you come to me and you take it from me. So I will have it always at my site. It's my precious, it's my only original copy. So what you do with it, I do not care. And at this moment we said, wow, this guy himself came to exactly the right idea, what he wants. So what is the problem now? At the moment, we see that museums have a lot of issues with existing platforms. Data is spread through different platforms, and they don't have originals. They have many copies as originals. By copies as originals, I mean that different platforms have copies of their data, but it's not clear which one is original. So they might have 2 different copies, so they update one, forget about update another, or whatever. So it's always a kind of mixture between these copies. So they're all considered as originals in a way which is very inconvenient. And of course, data is not controlled by museums, data is controlled by platforms, and there is no way to transfer data between different platforms. It's not easy, let's put it this way. And we believe that these issues roughly could be split in 2 parts. One is what we call data silos. I mean, it's first 2. It's a problem that they don't have original in one place. They have very many copies which are, like silos, rot. Some of them is rotten, some of this is fresh. Nobody knows. And they have issue with platforms because of monopoly of platforms. So if we ask ourselves a question, what could be the data space here? Well, probably it will be like that. 3 simple ideas. Well, probably 2, 3, 4, but in general, museums don't want to have copies as originals. They want to have it in one source as the origin in the museum, like this guy 2 months ago explained us. In one place, and then you take it from there. And of course, they want to have total control who and how uses data. As simple as that. Well, is it data space? Probably, that's their dream. And of course, it's not only about museums. It could be about schools or about hotels, whatever. All of them have the same problems. So that could be kind of starting point. Museums or any other organizations, they want to keep data in one place and they want all others to use it. As simple as that. Well, we believe that with post platforms we can do it, but again, I want you to question it and let's dive in it, and that's how we see it. Just to remind, I assume all of you know the idea of post platforms, this Web 1, Web 3, and Web 2. So we take the best from Web 1, the solid server, and we take from the Web 2 the idea of aggregator. But of course, in post platforms, aggregator doesn't have database. That's important. Okay, so just to remind the idea. So now, if we think about the solid server. So we have solid servers on the left, or pods you may call it, and we have different users from the right. And if you think about the ownership, and that's the most crucial question, who owns the data on the solid server, on the pod? Well, originally we thought that this person who owns the solid server, he has it all, or she. Or this girl has her solid server and also her house, for example. But actually we discovered that these people, they have only part of it. Another part belongs to other parties. And example is, if you have a doctor, the doctor writes a prescription, it lands on your pod because next year you hire another doctor and this another doctor will want to see the prescriptions. Or if it's cadaster, when cadaster creates some documents, cadaster can put it on your pods, personal pods or house pods or whatever. And the same could be done by notary or by engineer who comes to your house. So in the end of the day, we have a very strange situation when your pod contains data which is your personal, your documents, your photographs, whatever you put there, but it also contains information from all other parties who put it here. And by the way, you see that there are a lot of platforms between them. Actually, it doesn't matter which platforms they use. So in the end of the day, doctor deals with you, and what platform he uses is less important. So if we look at this picture like that, then we realize that this right part of the pods, it represents public data. And we thought that it makes a difference, because we used to think that all these guys on the right, they had databases. Of course, doctor has database, cadaster has database, notary, all these parties have database. But in this picture, all these databases, they are moved to the left and they distributed among thousands of these pods. And I think that's a data space as simple as that. So idea is that big databases of big organizations are spread like puzzles through millions, 7 millions of houses of cadaster. I mean, 15 millions of people in Netherlands. But this distribution of databases among people and organizations and houses and cars and equipment, that's probably the future. And then we called it data space. And that's what we would like to discuss with you, check with you, because it creates a lot of strange consequences. For example, cadaster will not have database, and they know about it, and we spoke with Erwin, and he told me, yeah, probably, but prove it to us, because there are a lot of security issues, of course.
Okay. Can we have some interaction?
Please,
or do you
please.
want that in the end, maybe? Or
Interrupt, it's more interesting.
okay. Well, one of the
Mich-
issues
Michel Boms, you know.
we discussed earlier. At the moment, we have, for instance, the Bach register at Cadaster. Contains all the buildings in the Netherlands. What are the assumptions now on the left side? Because then everybody should have this personal Bach information in his pot. It should be obligatory, right? Not an option.
Exactly. And
How does that work?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We come to it just in a couple of slides, but
Okay.
that's it. So
Okay.
you cannot just,
Keep it in.
your point is, you cannot switch off your solid server. It's not yours anymore.
Right.
And that's the most interesting thing. Okay, but before we come there, I would like to come back to my original picture and add here in red, read and write. Because when I spoke about museums, implicitly, I saw that, yeah, museums have data, they publish it, you take it. It's read-only situation. But from the previous slides, we realized that it's not only read, it's also write. So somebody writes down data on your pod, and that's very interesting situation. Let me compare it to the Google Docs, as you see on the slide. So imagine you have Google Doc, and different people with different access control rights, they have access to the same document. So that's the closest metaphor which demonstrates the idea of data space. Somebody writes in the part of the document, other guys see what he or she is writing. Well, the only difference is Google Doc is, again, centralized system, but imagine this doc is spread between all these guys. It's part of it kept on the pods, so that's the final situation. But idea of different parties writing together in the same data space and reading at the same time, that's the point of it. So it's read, write, capacity of the system. And now let's talk a little bit about security and the question which Michelle asked. And if we start thinking about access control, we know that ownership, you have only part of the pod. But when we talk about access control, I think you have complete control over 100% of your pod. Why? Because there are many doctors, many notaries, many engineers, and you choose which one of them do you want to employ and use. Well, in case of cadaster, you do it by law, so you choose because you have to choose, it's like police or whatever, but you say, okay, I allow cadaster to come and do something. So you control your pod and you allow organizations by law or by your choice to come to your pod. So it's first comment. So in terms of access control, it's totally yours. And then comes the question, what does it mean I allow cadaster to write down? You probably know that we have a lot of security around, which is mostly about key management. So this girl has a key, cadaster has a key, so when cadaster signs something, cadaster signs. But it's not cadaster who signs. I mean, cadaster is organization, it doesn't have will. And point is that if you don't have will, you don't have keys. So for example, the girl, she has key, but the house has a pod, but it doesn't have key. So how it will work exactly? Well, so for cadaster to sign document here, actually cadaster works probably through some platform, like cadaster platform. Cadaster has a port, of course, and cadaster has management. Some manages the government who, rules cadaster and gives them some, tells them what to do and provides them documents, etc. Assign people in cadaster, organizational charts, etc. So there is some person over there in the government, like this girl here with the key, but also like this house belongs to the girl. In this way, cadaster port belongs to this person in the government, and then the government, this person, creates this, signs this, organizational chart for cadaster. So it's placed on the cadaster database. So when the girl provides provides access for cadaster to her house port, she actually goes to cadaster, and then access rights goes through the organizational chart to specific manager here, who happen to be here with some officer with some key. So in the end of the day, we are talking about officer with a key, a person in the government with a key, and the girl with a key. All these keys are provided by public key infrastructure. So in the end of the day, only a person can sign, not organization. So in the end of the day, it will be officer who signs the document, and probably girl will co-sign that she accepted whatever. So it's very important that we always know who exactly when did, because probably today this officer works for cadaster, tomorrow he will not. So when he signs something, we always say, okay, that's the date, on this date, yes, he worked for cadaster, he is authorized to do it. So it's quite detailed situation when really real people can do it. So trust is very important here, and we really have to distribute keys to all people around. Okay, what about platforms which they use? They use cadaster platform. It's not very important. You see, we have cryptographic connections from end to end. So platform, yeah, it will just provide this channel, but still we'll have to certify platforms at some, Web3 authorities. So they'll be certified, so that probably at some moment cadaster engineer will prefer not to use cadaster platform, but he or she will use Funda. Yeah, if Funda can provide it, why not? Who cares? Platforms are less important here. Okay, if you make one step further, and we are coming to your question, Michelle, to the security and responsibility. When we see that a person has a port with a lot of public information, we have to provide what we call persistence. So he or she cannot switch it off. So it should be a contract with very well reliable, cloud service like Amazon or Microsoft Azure, whatever. And this service should provide multiple backups, version control, archive service, whatever. So when person use port, it should be reliable, and he or she cannot not have it. So we come inevitably to this idea that, yeah, it looks like the port will be required to have, like passport. You can't live without passport. Or like insurance for your car, because you cannot drive your car without insurance. So in the future, we might have situations that you cannot live without having your port. It will be obligatory. You'll be obliged by the public authority to have one. Well, then probably a good question, probably a public authority should pay for it, provide you €5 per month to buy it from Amazon or Google, whatever. You choose, but you choose from reliable partners. So in the end of the day, we are talking about situation when government will enforce that you use it, if we allow to keep public information here, otherwise it will never work. Well, and by the way, if it goes in this direction, probably it means that you'll have very reliable port with a lot of backups, etc., where you keep your photographs, your documents. So in a way, this data space could be extended also to your personal data, which is probably not so bad, because right now, if you ask anybody, where are your photographs 20 years old? Most probably person will reply, yeah, sorry, 5 years ago I had hard disk crash. Sorry, didn't survive. So if you have these ports also in your personal life, it means it will be reliable. It means that people will forget even to think, yeah, it's there, my photographs always reliable and in good source. So probably the European data space will cover personal data as well. Why not? And that's example of the case when government comes to the scene and start doing something. In December, Flanders announced that they are going to invest in ports, solid service for personal data for all people in Flanders. We all still believe that it's a little bit too early probably, because there are a lot of questions and solid protocol is not so good, but it's a good step and looks like they go to the right direction. if we think what else do we need to provide the right security? Second task, investigation of any frauds. So we really need to have some continuous preventive checkups, to have logs, and all transactions should be signed by those who make transactions. So it will be a lot of security, cryptography, and signatures on every action we should do in the system. Of course, version control, timestamps, cross-examinations through different pods. So point is that we will have instruments to trace down what is going on. And if nothing works, well, probably we need to have insurance companies involved. Because right now, I guess, if something goes wrong with cadaster database, who is guilty? Cadaster. Yeah, but cadaster is not, probably damage could be really high. And if it delegated to insurance companies, probably it's not a bad idea, because insurance companies will be on the shoulders of cadaster guys. You have to do this, that. They will force cadaster and all stakeholders to do something serious about security. So point is that if you provide cryptography and key distribution through public key infrastructure, it seems that we might address the issue of responsibility control, access rights, and real security. That's quite important. Does that answer your question, Michel?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
please restate it.
Well, okay, so there are some non-optional links on the right side, right? Like cadaster, there was a special one, the others
Yep.
are optional.
Yep.
But if there is a non-optional party there, then for completeness, everybody should on the left side have a pod, right?
Exactly, that's what I said.
It's not an optional thing to have a pod anymore.
Exactly,
And
that's
how do
what-
you come to that transition or whatever?
Well,
it's a big step, right?
Yeah, Flanders already did it.
Yeah.
You just get it. So, well, let me guess, 200 years ago, people didn't have passports, all of them. Somehow we managed to provide passports to everyone.
Something like that.
And I remember I lived in Moscow in those times when they started to implement this insurance for cars. Whoa, why should I have insurance? They get used to this idea. You get car, you get insurance. So we'll have to interact with government to ensure, okay, it will be 1st of January 2025. Before that, we'll have prototypes, pilots, whatever. But on some date,
Some point in time,
obligatory.
everybody
Yeah.
should have one.
It
It's
seems
not
so,
a
because-
50-50 situation, it's always
Yeah.
200. Huh?
I fully agree. Otherwise, it will not work.
Yeah.
But we have very many projects where the system could be could be tested without such a big system, like distributing cadaster database. Hotels, for example. So we can run a project with hotels. Well, even if 90% of hotels have it, it will work. Or we can run project with mobile operators. That's why we have Maxim from Vion. Mobile operators are very happy to sell people pods on when they decide to do so, because with a pod, for a person it will be advantage that he or she will be able to publish a resume, publish some skills, or publish some photograph of the table I want to sell, and Vodafone will promise, if you do it, your resume will be on 50 websites like Monsterbot, your skills will be on Uber and other skill selling platforms, and your table will be on Marktplaats and 50 other platforms. When so it will be advantage for people, they will buy it themselves. So we will have pilot tests.
But it is, of course, it's partially a technical problem to provide people technically with a solid pod.
Yep.
But to make this work in the end, you need to know about the information structure, the semantics needed. So you need ontologies or what schemas, whatever you want, for the cadaster data, for the doctor data, for the engineering services.
And here I do hope that linked data will be a magic wand which will help us, because linked data allows computer to understand different terminology, different things, and eventually to align them through all these schema.org things. So actually any platform which we'll use in a way will become a CMS, content management system for the pod. So if you work through cadaster platform, it will write something down on the pod using some schema.org ontologies.
Yeah, but that sounds very simple, but we have project working people for 10 years on a schema for one aspect in one discipline, right? So it's not
easy,
but automatic or easy, and the semantics in ontologies is also limited in a sense, right?
But definitely linked data provides some way forward.
Of course, it's a mechanism.
Yeah.
It's
Without it, I had today a meeting with.
But it's not automatic. You need
It's not automatic.
Specification work
some
to make it work.
work with hands.
Yeah.
But I spoke today with some guys about some grant, whatever, and they still were thinking in terms of, okay, we have to have a register of all goods, whatever. No, we don't need registers. We need all this, linked data, flexibility to connect things.
Attributes.
So for me, linked data inside the system is a possibility to scale up. At least possibility.
Okay.
And that's why I love linked data.
You can start simple and expand. Adapt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are done with questions. Thank you, it's important thing. Good, now, last comment is that let's look at the reality. In reality, if you look around for data space, probably the first thing you'll find is international data spaces. It's a very big project done by Fraunhofer Institute, and you see it has data space inside, so it looks like data space. And it's connected to another project called Gaia X. And we made some research on that, and we believe that there are some miscommunication issues here, which I would like to state, because if later on you start thinking about data space, search for it, you will get to international data space by default. And let's have a look how we have different understanding here. Actually, if you come back to our original idea, this is Web 2, when platforms have database inside, like Facebook, LinkedIn, we had different issues. You know, Alex cannot send message to Bob because Bob is in LinkedIn, or Alex has to publish his photos twice. So there are a lot of issues associated with platforms. And approach of ideas is, okay guys, we have many issues with platforms. What if we address only the first one? Yeah, let's make a small step. We address only the issue. Alex cannot send message to Bob because he's on LinkedIn, Alex on Facebook. If we have only one issue in mind, we do it very simple way. We just connect with API to platforms, let's call it ideas API, and then the message just goes between platforms. As simple as that. Issue resolved. Is it all? Yes, you can send messages this way, but you didn't address 3 other issues with platforms, especially monopoly of platforms. It looks like a simple way, but it doesn't address all issues. What is the full-scale way? We believe that we need, as I said, we cut it with scissors, we disconnect platforms and pods, and then the message goes from Facebook to the pod of the person. So if I want to send message to Bob, I do not send it to LinkedIn, I send it to Bob. So Facebook will just put the message to his pod. And then Bob will inform his pod, I want to pick up message through WhatsApp, Skype, LinkedIn, who cares? And then it will come anyway Bob wishes. It looks a bit more complicated, but in this way, I don't have to specify where is Bob. And secondly, we don't need connection between platforms. This is the most important thing. That's the difference between our vision of this Web3 and the vision of ideas. Ideas wants to connect platforms. We don't want to connect platforms. We want to connect platforms with pods, with real data. And this small difference brings completely different results in the end. Let me show you the picture. If I take these people who provide data, these people who read data, there are platforms. Ideas approach, they do not see people who publish, they don't see people who use, they see only platforms. So ideas just about connecting platforms. From the other side, people who invented Solid, funny enough, they didn't recognize platforms, they don't see them. They just connect people with pods with people who want to read them. Also not perfect, but at least a good direction. So in our case, with post platforms, we said, guys, we like more this right path, because here people are completely omitted. We go here, but could we, oh yeah, by the way, sorry, I forgot that here we also have databases with kept as the platforms, which means that issue of data steals, the situation of multiple copies, still stays with ideas. So you publish data on different platforms and they can connect, but you still have very many copies. You don't address the issue of copies, so that's a big issue with ideas. But here, in our case, we just say, okay guys, what if we just put platforms here, let them connect through Solid to pods, and people continue to use platforms. We need platforms as aggregators. So that's why we say, yeah, we are more close to Solid. But ideas is a good first step. It's very simple, connect platforms, but it's a kind of dead end for us, because after that, what you can do? You don't address anything. And let me give you an example. Oh, by the way, very good example, thank you. Michelle sent me today this data act from European Commission. I read it, and the document says, yeah, it's myriad of challenges, whatever. Actually, if you read it carefully, you see it's only one challenge.
Yeah,
the challenge is how to connect databases, nothing else. So that's the challenge of ideas.
Yeah.
And in a way, it demonstrates how the European authorities react to the situation with platforms. It's not proactive, it's reactive approach. We have problem, we have too many platforms, we need to connect them. And we need to provide people opportunity to transfer from one platform to another. So all these 6 items is about simplifying the way to transfer data from platform A to platform B. But why don't we go in different way? Why we don't suggest, guys, why platforms have data on the first place? Platforms shouldn't have data, platforms should aggregate. Data should be at our pods. That's probably my reply to this approach. But still, it's approach of ideas, and ideas is perfectly in line with European regulation. It's a problem for us. So, if I come back to the picture I started and apply it to the market I know. It's a market of cultural heritage, and we have here a great project called Europeana. And Europeana in the first version, which was developed for the last 10 years, it's just another platform. So we have storytelling platform, website platforms, whatever platforms. Europeana just another platform. The only difference, museums don't have a choice. They have to upload data to Europeana, which is good. Yep. So we have at least one platform which has it all, but not good because museums have just another platform to upload data. So they have one more copy, and of course it affects the quality of it. That's the issue with Europeana. We are not sure how good is the quality because museums see it just as another platform, not as a real data which they need. So we know that there are some discussions in European now about data space. It was a conference a month ago, and one of the options which I've seen is, okay, what if European will become a kind of connector between platforms? This is very easy to do, quite easy to do, but will be IDS approach. It's a end-to-end solution. You connect platforms, but still you have all these, copies, just interconnected. So essentially it's idea. So it could be version 3 of Europeana when museums have pods, and then all platforms just fly around it like bees over flowers, picking up any information they need. Europeana will be one of them, but Europeana also will be a body which deploys the whole system and stimulates museum to have it. So it will be a big educational role for Europeana. But in the end, they're just one of the platforms, probably the best one, whatever. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it could be case when museums will deal with platforms which are far away from museums, like cartography. TomTom has a big issue with points of interest. They pay millions € to organizations which provide address of museum, telephone of museum, open hours of museum. TomTom can pick it up from museums directly. The same restaurants. If some restaurant guide can get information about restaurant museum directly, why not? And insurance company also can deal directly with your pod. So point is that it opens immediately possibility to go to other industries, and then it will be not just Europeana data space, it will be quite global. So that's more or less our ideas. And I would like again to highlight that it's about possibility to write information, not only to read, which is important. For example, feedback from users. Museum can collect it, likes, dislikes, etc. Now, I'm done, probably a little bit longer than I thought, but I would like to get your comments on that, and also, if possible, Michelle or others, if you can present your challenges, your cases from your industry, being mobile operators or, education, whatever, that could be the discussion today. And again, we are first time, and gentlemen, I would like to initiate some discussion, comments, whatever. So now I'm going to return computer to the table, and let's try.
Well, I have one specific issue on one of your earlier sheets. Maybe you can go to that sheet where you compared horizontally, vertically IDS versus solid slash PP.
Shall I come back?
Can you?
This one?
Well, you know it's not criticism because I like your story. You know that, right? So, but we are encountering these kind of issues. So, in case on the left side, there is always some tight connection between the data and the functionalities offered by the system. If you have more details in your data, you can provide more kinds of functionalities to the end user. On the left side, you just combine the existing functionality set. Sorry, on that side, the IDS, you keep these functionalities. They keep their own data structures. They can still expand themselves and make it more complex and offer new functionalities in the future, right?
Yep.
On the other side, you take the data separate, you could say. You define some specification that is a common denominator of all these systems. It will be simpler, potentially, than the combination on the left. So my issue is then, if you go the solid way, will the functionality be compromised in some sense because you now think up a specification for Facebook only data? Yes, you have users, you have friends, but it's always one view on that kind of data and not the creativity that is in all these guys so many years development. You get my point, eh?
Let me try to explore it. Imagine we have here not solid but post platforms, like that. So I insert here platforms which deal through solid, but people just on this right side sitting as a
But they
platform.
don't
Yeah.
see you.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah.
They see the screen.
Yeah.
They should see. Oh, I hope they see the
Yeah,
screen.
but you're showing things. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Ah, I
You can see your
myself.
point.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thank you. Point is that at this moment we can perceive platform not as system which aggregates and reads, but as CMS, content management system.
Mhm.
Which means that Facebook has one functionality, LinkedIn has slightly different functionality. Good. So this girl sits at LinkedIn and she starts to type some post, whatever, and probably LinkedIn allows the post with picture, text, picture, etc., which Facebook doesn't allow.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, save button. Yeah, LinkedIn say, yeah, it will save it here.
Yeah.
Using link data, it will manage to put it somehow and leave it to Facebook to interpret it. So this guy through Facebook will read this data.
Okay.
Facebook probably will not be able to read it all, shame, but it will have incentive to improve its capacity.
Yeah.
So every platform will use the pod as a storage for data which is specific for it. But again, thanks to link data, theoretically, other platforms may try to interpret. Probably they will interpret 90% of it. That's live. And in this way they will compete. So it will be not intersection of two capacities, but it will be union of them.
Okay, but then you need a Facebook ontology. You need a linked data, a LinkedIn ontology. right?
Yes, and
That
I
you start
hope it
connecting.
will start developing.
Is that the kind of thing you want, or do you want to have a more generic common ontology for this kind of data?
My guess, but here you are more specialist than me, I'm very new in link data, my feeling is that it could work in either way. Either Facebook will go to schema.org and use ontology they find, or they create their own ontology, but some other specialists will connect ontology of LinkedIn with Facebook, write these vocabularies. That this in Facebook means something in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't matter, and let people be creative.
Yeah. No,
Does
it
make
means,
sense?
this kind of conversion or mapping between those views
Yeah,
is
somebody
very
will have to
essential
do it.
then, that you don't lose information.
Exactly.
Because otherwise Facebook says, well, I need that kind of data. You have to put it in.
My
I don't know, that's
my
not
guess,
your
a lot of people will go to schema.org and try to help Facebook and LinkedIn to create ontology between
schema.org is just
Okay,
a
some
very
oth-
generic set of
or some other ontology systems.
Yeah.
But in general, what I like about linked data, it's possibility for competition for different ideas. It creates a little bit vague world, not specifically defined, but it will be some competing definitions, competing interpretations, and the system will try to stabilize somehow around something. So I like this unclearness, vagueness of the system.
You need some dynamic ontologies
Exactly.
that can grow and
Yeah. As we discussed with
on
you,
the fly connect or
yeah,
whatever.
because ontologies also change in time, so it's good when system is dynamic, it just adjusts itself through the time.
Yeah. But this is well, quite a topic, I would say, that
I-
needs thinking, research, whatever. Yeah.
But in some domains, this vagueness, like you said, will not be
Appreciated.
welcome. Yes, like
No.
those which cadaster. So
Yeah.
So, and in these domains, the question is actually who will be driving the ontology on the solid side, because as Michel said, the creativity comes from the platforms and not.
Let me speculate about cadaster. Okay, it will be cadaster platform which I know how to create these documents and put them on solid service. Yeah, fine. And then Funde will come and say, yeah, I also want to play it, and probably they will do it in the wrong way. Then banks, which will use cadaster documents, they will decide for themselves. Yeah, do you accept document created by Funde? Not yet. So Funde will have to do something. So and Funde will try to improve its capacity until we reach the level when banks start to accept these documents. So something like that. Again, we have a market which will adjust these things. It just, I'm trying to
No.
answer on the fly.
Yeah, and then extra complication that if you want to have a European solution, then you will have country specifics, right? Our cadaster footprint of the house is differently defined probably in France or in England. So you will always have this European schema that might be personalized for specific countries maybe.
Could be. But what I like about it, imagine a house has a 3D model. Probably Cadaster doesn't need it. Yeah, Funda might appreciate it. Google Earth will appreciate it. Yeah, I can see my house on Google Earth because it will be automatically taken. Or museums. Museums now talk, in European, big talk about 3D models of whatever. Well, why do we keep it only for culture and heritage? If the 3D models of all churches are created for Europeana, they will be available in cadaster, in Google Earth, on any kind of maps. So, because 3D is extremely expensive. If you do it once, let's reuse it. And then Europeana with great project on 3D will enrich Google Earth, Google Maps and other TomTom maps with wonderful 3D models.
Yeah. But then you come into open standards, right? So for the 3D modeling on the GIS side, we have now, I'm also participating in these groups now to see if you want to add 3D to your GIS stuff. We have on the buildings, industry for buildings, we have the Building Smart, IFC standard for instance. Well, that is 80% geometry. So it's a solution to have neutral geometry. Well, that would be a candidate to say, okay, if we want 3D geometry for a building, let's use IFC geometry. So then there is a standard already that you can utilize. It's
but still,
not in the form of ontology maybe, but it can be easily transferred to an ontology.
And
right?
by the way, guys, for all of you, Michel is really a big specialist in standardization. So when this guy talks about standards, please take it seriously. Just coming for you. But still, standards as they are interpreted in European Union, it's a very dynamic thing, not imposed by the government, but discussed with stakeholders.
Yeah, that's a bit. Right.
By the way, it's in many countries not like that.
Yeah.
But this dynamic nature of standards in Europe, it also a great ecosystem for us to go on, because these standards are dynamic. So we will see like these 3D standards will dynamically develop as different partners approach from different angles. So I like this dynamic nature of European approach in standardization. Standards should be dynamic.
And big data can support that. So
Exactly.
the IFC model now is an ISO-step technology. That's really from the 80s, right? And that's all fixed, it's static.
Yeah.
And they take 1 year to go from one version to another.
Yeah.
Well, that situation, that's not what you want. You want to have
I want to
a
have
mechanism
free-
that can grow and scale and that kind of
So in a way, I suggest situation when people through platforms can vote which standards they like, which formats they prefer. So these formats will grow themselves, so you'll not have to have a special standardization committee at NEN. People will do it just in a natural way. I mean, this standard became famous. Wow. Okay, let it go. Some platforms already support it. So we go to the world of very dynamic things, including standards, which is usually not perceived dynamic.
Question on that dynamics. We are now here in a room and a few people online thinking about this. How many of these groups are out there?
Groups doing what?
doing the
What
same.
we are doing right here?
Well, it's a good question. Surprisingly, not many. We know a few. We know like IDS project, but it's quite European thing. We know some universities and some. I know the project started by McCourt Foundation. It's a billionaire from America who gave money to two universities, one in America, one Sciences Po in Paris, and they started project called Project Freedom, which is also thinking in this direction. We already talking to them. There is a consortium of projects called My Data. These guys collect, a lot of startups which also jump around this. Some of them naive, some not, but we see this development. We see a lot of projects which are open source. So the approach is, okay, we have Facebook, it belongs to Mr. Zuckerberg. No, let's make Facebook which is open source code. Everybody can participate. Yes, it doesn't belong to Facebook, but it's still monopoly of its own. So we don't like these projects. We see projects based on blockchain. Blockchain has some issues with trust, and we discussed yesterday with you that we prefer to establish trust field through PKI, through delivering keys to everybody, then we don't need blockchain. So blockchain created for case when you don't have trust. So it's quite a big tree of different opportunities, and but surprisingly not big enough. I was surprised myself when we invented this idea of post platforms, and when I seen the work of Solid and Tim Berners-Lee, I thought, oh yeah, that's great. But then I started to search around, not many. I don't know why, but people don't think in this direction at all. People somehow just really occupied with the idea, okay, we have different platforms, let's connect them. I spoke with the guys in Ministry of Transport of Netherlands. They have very many platforms. Yeah, they have great idea. We have big platforms, let's connect them. And they don't want to go further. So IDS is ideal solution for them. I heard a lot of discussions like that in cultural sector, in other sectors. So somehow people think more in the same direction as European Commission. Let's connect platforms. It's enough.
Which is optimization versus innovation, basically.
Exactly. So they just optimize a little bit, but they don't address the issue. People and organizations should own the data, not delegate to platforms and then connect over there. People need to get it in their own hands. Yeah, but the amount of project is not, it's quite small, and that's very, it's good and bad at the same time.
We see more and more projects for linked data semantic web, but then, and that's already difficult to convince people because people want to go whatever more web development, JSON stuff instead of this complicated ontology stuff. So that's already difficult, but more and more organizations are in that area.
By the way,
but it's always central, right? They make a central triple store somewhere and they collect. And well, this is more like the next step then. And that making also hard. They are still trying to think about the linked data, the semantic approach, you could say. And now they should go yet differently
exactly. And by
distributed.
The way, it's only I think I know only one project which uses linked data and it's solid. All other projects I know, they have no idea what is linked data, why is it. One of the projects I don't even want to name this project, but they talk about only two relations. They want to substitute Facebook, and they know relation, I'm a friend and I follow somebody. Two relations, and they think it's enough. I mean, modern linked data technologies, they work with thousands, millions of different relations. I'm a father of him and I like him or I don't like him.
That brings me to a topic, because...
So linked data is not popular yet.
No, but...
Alex.
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
add a little bit on that, because you talked a lot about the cultural heritage situation.
Thank you, Anna. Please talk. Anna, he is a representative of Royal Library, as I quote, and he is the person who actually, unlike all of us, he made first solid service. Anna, please.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I work for the what we call the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, and it's the Royal Library is one of the parties in there, and we're trying to improve the visibility of digital heritage information, basically in a distributed way. So not build another platform where we put all the heritage information on, but really think from the cultural heritage institution as being the source of the information, like you said in your presentation as well. And we started working on that already in 2015 by implementing linked data directly in the cultural heritage institutions. And that's we are working on that. We have in the Dutch cultural heritage sector, we have about more than 2,000 institutes, so it's quite a lot of implementation to do, but we're slowly moving ahead there, and that's why we also looked into the solid bots as an alternative for the current collection management systems, and see if we could build something based on solid, so it would be directly on the web, directly standardized through linked data. And for us, reflecting on your story, I think for the cultural heritage sector, it's really about open data and sharing the data, not so much about controlling the data or control who has access. We think it's the data should be available for the public in all different ways for reuse. So that's why publishing it in linked data as openly as possible is really a logical way for us. One problem you didn't address, if you have a really large network of bots publishing that data, how can you find the data? That's really a big question. That's the big advantage of putting everything on one platform, that you know where to find it. If you don't do that, then you need to solve the discovery problem. And we are currently doing steps in that direction. One of them is building a registry that really is connected directly to the sources and is really a high quality registry. And we will add knowledge graph services to that in order to help reusers to better find the data in those data sets described in the registry. So we're making that steps slowly. So for me, and that is basically a suggestion to you in developing these plans, I think it would really be helpful to draw a roadmap for it, to see the different steps you can make and how you can really slowly grow to the end goal you showed, because it's really far away and we have many steps to go there. One other thought, reflect on what you said, is, and I like the work, I don't know if you know it, from the Swedish government. They're actually their department that's involved in the unemployment regulations, and they are developing they're doing a solid project, so they make a solid pot available for every registered citizen that needs an employment fee. And I think in providing pot services from a more centralized picture would be more interesting than seeing all the different services ending up in one pot per user. I think that's not a realistic view. I think you will end up with users having multiple pots depending on their different services they use, with different settings around it, different kinds of security or access control systems around it. I think it will be a very differentiated end picture, I think.
Thank you, Anna. Let me answer these questions. I start with the second one. I believe, from our research in different industries, we realize that, not only institutions like museums need pods, but also departments of museums, but also people. And the only thing that I think a person will have only one pod. He or she doesn't need more, just one. And definitely machines will have pods. Different machinery, cars, engine of the car, part of the engine, pump of the engine, whatever. And so in the end, if we go in this direction, we expect, let's say, about 100 trillion pods on the whole planet. Quite a number. And you're absolutely right, it's impossible to deal with 100 trillion pods if you don't have some system to organize it. My understanding is that, okay, we use this personal data vault or pod, and in our, and in our system, we also need platforms, which are not originally assumed is solid. But you're absolutely right, we need a registry. And it could be extension of DNS or use of DNS, or it could be some separate registry, because it will be quite specific. But we definitely need one. And because we are talking about 100 trillion pods, we definitely need systems like, Yahoo, Google, whatever, Yandex, systems which will index it and provide some special service for platforms. So for example, Booking.com will say, I don't need 100 trillion pods. I need to know which pods belong to hotels. So Google will sell to Booking.com the list of hotels. So that's how to address. And of course, the last component is security with all this PKI, with keys, etc. So that's our understanding of the complete picture. So it's pods, platforms, registry, and the security. Security should be from originally in the core. So I fully agree, you start to make registry, so registry is an important part of the story. And does it answer the question? To some extent?
Yes, it does. And I think it especially for the registries, is probably also a distributed way of
yeah, like DNS. DNS quite distributed. So yeah. So any platform like Facebook or Booking.com, when it starts, it just goes to registry or to Google, ask, okay, which pods are available, and pick them up. That's the way you discover pods in the first place, and then you do what you want to do with them. But and every pod, when it starts, it will go to register. Knock knock. I'm a pod. Could you please register me? Okay, it will register this pod specifically. Operates here on this Amazon service.
Yeah, and for me, coming back to the European data space, I'm wondering if they don't just if the registry isn't just the data space we're looking for, and not the data itself, but just the registry, you know, and which point to where the data is. And I would be really like Europeana as well. That's of course a partner in our network, and we would really like to talk with them, seeing a hybrid approach. So publishing the data at the source and building a registry to know where to find the data, being online, available and usable because it's published as linked data. So that's my talk with Europeana, at least the talk I would like to have with Europeana.
We would like to support you in these talks. And actually, Henry was going to be here, but for logistical reasons, he couldn't. He apologized, but he will review this presentation, so you can address him now.
Okay.
And we'll talk to him. We agreed that we'll meet and talk to him. So we'll definitely talk to Europeana about this approach for sure, together with you. And you know, the more people like the idea, the more chance Europeana will pay more attention to this. So you need us, we need you here. Thank you. And René, do you have any comments from educational point of view? I mean, does it make sense? So René is from Layer Unique, this educational platform. René Mees.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi.
My name is René Mees indeed. I'm working at Layer Unique, and we are very interested in the post-platform project because privacy is a big thing in our market. The availability and the protection of children data, learning data, is a big thing. What we see as a problem in our market is that the availability of the right data it takes a lot of steps to get that and to really cooperate on that. Right now, we have platforms connected in our market. And I think there's a big benefit if we can overcome that hurdle and have connections to pods for children or for parents of children. It would make our, the quality of our work much better, I think, and also make the data more actual. I think the data space, as far as I can see, it would play a big role in our market. But for me, the technical aspects, it's difficult to comment on that.
Forget about it. By the way, we are now sitting at Erasmus University. I just saw that, okay, I see a professor in front of me, I mean, of the university. And actually, I think we discussed with you that children who have these pods, eventually they come to university. So in this way, they will carry all the data, all the achievements to university to be some kind of consistency. And after university, they go to the real life and will be used for job search, whatever, together with the e-karma thing. So it's kind of consistent. Portfolio. Yeah, super portfolio. Yeah, right. So super portfolio, we start from kindergarten and goes all your life.
Yeah. For instance,
it's quite a subject to discuss by itself.
Yeah, because what we already noticed that in our market, because we only serve the primary markets, and when children are ready in their 8th year and ready for going to another type of education, then most teachers in those higher education organizations, they don't know where every kid is, and the differences are getting bigger. So it would be a really advantage if they could access, the kids come from different schools, if they could access the kids' data from all those different schools and compile a dossier about that, so they can really start teaching more effectively. Because right now, the first part of the first year is wasted.
Adjusting.
Yeah. I don't know if you,
And here linked data again will be a help, because different schools, different ontologies, different terms, and different universities, and they will not understand each other easily. And linked data with its ability to, translate things, that will be a help, I guess, because then we don't limit schools to some universal terminology. They can use whatever they want. Somebody will provide translating dictionaries for that.
I have a
Thank you, René.
I have sort of a probably more basic question. I have worked in Lithuania. I'm still working in Lithuania with very, very talented young people. Extremely talented, I could say, and driven, which is sometimes a little bit of an issue here in the Netherlands. And when I look around this table, including me, I'm like, how come we are all gray, let's say middle-aged, white male, middle-aged men thinking on this, whereas maybe we bring in a 22-year-old, because that is, you know, and they are like, what the heck are you talking about? We are already doing this here.
Well, I have probably partial answer for you. I spoke with a lot of youngsters, and you know, they don't get it, because we learned, well, in our childhood we didn't have Facebook, so it came later on. So we used to see different worlds, but these young people, they grew together with Instagram, Facebook, etc., and they reply me, oh, Alex, they take it for granted. Okay, we have
What's the
Facebook for
problem?
They're
personal.
too much in it.
They're too much in it. They
We see at a systems level.
Yes, they cannot
Cannot
distance
escape
themselves.
anymore.
And,
I agree.
secondly, they don't have life experience, because these kind of things require life experience, not easier.
No, to an extent I agree on that. I agree on that on the topic of where do we stand now? How do we get to where we want to be? And why do we want to get there where we want to be? But if you ask these kids, so if you would basically blank sheet, reinvent the world, how would you do that?
Do you mean what will be my sequence of deployment system? Or
No. The sequence of deployment would be something where we would definitely be very, needed, because we know the whole monopoly of Facebook, the data, all the basically the history where we came from. I would say cultural heritage is, all about where did we come from, and that will teach us where we want to go. Or same thing here, but if you take high-tech young kids, would they not be a real added asset in the discussion here?
Actually, that was the goal. Alex asked me to contribute some of my the people working in my center, and they could have this kind of input. I don't know. Well, in fact, he also gave a presentation to my broader academic team and my scientific team, and they're all engaged. I don't think they would supersede him in terms of knowledge of the system. They would be able to ask the right questions, just like we do, and they would add to that, this is the world that we live in, or rather this is what we experience on a daily basis, but then rather commenting on the problems with platforms than on the solutions of post-platforms. They were sometimes a little bit scared by the e-commerce types of things that those post-platforms face. But I didn't have the impression that that their knowledge or awareness would be superior to ours. I'm very happy to involve them. I'd love to see what they have to say. I'm sure they have their own perspective, but they're not, that in terms of knowledge at the system level, they're not further than that.
No, and I don't know. It's simple as that. But my experience also in the change programs that I run and in businesses, and it's so important to bring on the different perspectives.
I agree with that.
And here I sort of and
He's young, he seems.
No, but,
Thank you guys.
I would not bring in 17-year-olds or whatever, but somewhere mid-30s, 25, 30, 40.
But in general, yes,
Especially because my mindset is constantly great idea, love it.
But
I know the end. I understand the end game, I know where we are now.
In December, I gave a lecture to 20 university to students.
Yeah.
They accepted pretty well, and questions were normal questions. I mean, I didn't get anything unusual, I would say. So yeah, I spoke to them, and we will continue to do it. And as suggested, we will continue in this university to talk to professors, to students. University is a good place to talk, and we'll go on with that. But you're right, we need to include different nationalities, mentalities, ages,
You're talking about age, right? But and it's related. It's related, yes. But if you look at
yeah, just a second, and
if you look at total other views, independent of the age, but often it's related to younger guys. Yeah, we have a group of people. I'm in from the data department. The first thing, as a principle, we tell for linked data, separate functionality and data, and don't get it all clashed up. That's a principle, first principle, before anything else, typically, right? And now I start talking with my younger colleagues, who are all on machine learning, deep learning, neural nets, right? They say, do we take apart this? I'm thinking algorithms, right? Take that apart from the data. They think, no, this neural net stuff, as generic functionalities, is completely intertwined with the data. Gone is my first argument. So I started rethinking, but it has to do with age. When I graduated, I also graduated in artificial intelligence. It was about chess playing, computer building, right? Yeah. Now it's all kinds of machine learning, and they have a different view on that. So indeed, you have to think again, how does it work when we want to combine all these nice data resources with the machine learning capabilities that are not so easily taken from that data. It's almost a network of processing instead of a network of data, right?
Yep.
Is my argument still valid then? So indeed, you can, now and then you have different views that you have to reconsider and check.
Okay, we have here Anna who wants to ask something.
Yeah, I would like to contribute to this discussion as well. I have a personal experience because I have a son who's his age is 25 and he has a master in software development. And I talk a lot with him about linked data and semantic web. My impression, for one thing, what was very strange to me, that he never learned anything about semantic web during his education. A master study at the UvA, and he never heard about semantic web, and I think that's very strange. The other part is, I think the importance of standardization is something that is for a lot of people not really as clear as if you grow older, you see all the trouble you get if you don't do it the right way. So the older you get, the more important standardization is, I think, and it's really the basis of all the things we're discussing here. So I don't know. I must say the concept itself. If I talk to my son, it's very clear to him what we're trying to achieve, and he is really enthusiastic about it as well. It's just not the way they're currently used to work or to look at the world, and they just go ahead and find their way, I think, and so maybe it's just, that's just a small contribution from my side.
Agree on that in the Netherlands.
I agree on that, and I have looked around, and there is different cultures and different attitudes and different ways of being educated, and all I'm saying is we want to move from where we are now towards something in the future. First of all, are we the only ones who can predict that future in a good way? Could we make use of more than our own sort of layer of society?
Interpretation or understanding.
Exactly, and maybe they don't have any value.
We are too biased, maybe.
But true, but especially when you go to implementation and change, you will need them to be able to talk to their peers.
I have two comments here from my side. One comment is, it looks simple, but frankly speaking, I think that stuff we are talking about requires some experience and learning. It's like, you know, modern physics. If you want to know string theory, you have to learn for 30 years. And that's my concern, that probably as physics will develop, probably it will be not enough lifetime just to get to the front line of the physics. So
It's an assumption. That you're
assumption.
now having.
Second comment is that it's quite in Western mentality to divide things into the part and study every part separately. Here we have a project where it should be all together. So it's very difficult to divide it, but you know, students usually learn either biology or math or something like that. They specialize.
Yeah, that's what.
And this kind of thing requires probably not specialization, but very wide area. And for
This
example,
is but this is exactly why I say that in different cultures, different countries, we do different way of education.
yeah, but
And here, especially in Germany, Holland, France, UK, we specialize like crazy.
mhm.
But there are kids, I call them kids because I'm old, out there who are thinking generic and who are able to think beyond that. And again, not some. Are they going to come up with this thought that we're like, we never thought of that?
It's
Probably not.
It's not only
Probably
the
not.
psychological type. I mean, let's take, I'm just thinking about myself. Okay, what kind of kid am I? I have experience in cryptography. This project requires a lot of cryptography. Not many people understand it. Okay, it requires. Then I need to understand standardization. And I've been in standardization for a while when I was building high-speed rail. It helped me a lot because standardization also requires to understand the basic why is this. Not how done, but why, how the basic things work. It also requires knowledge in technologies, IT, okay, I've been there. So, I mean that it just happened that I was lucky guy who went through some industries which are all needed here in this project. And that's probably why I'm jumping here, because I have this experience. But it really requires very wide experience, which is usually not taught in university, but also it requires practice. I mean, you really have to work, 5 years in security before you start understanding it. It's extremely difficult subject.
I fully agree.
So,
I fully agree.
young people, they just don't have this capacity to get it all at once. So that's the problem. It's like modern physics. It requires lifelong journey to get it all.
Right.
Probably.
It's not only technology, right?
No,
Because
it's not
you
only
can-
I
technology.
want to bring in something related to how does innovation happen, because this is a form of innovation. And it is often believed, and then there's a follow-up from how we treat economics these days, is that the market will do the job somehow. But especially if you look at fundamental innovations, they come from government. Government is a highly underestimated contributor to innovation. You already have this with the World Wide Web or with the internet. That didn't, or broadband and fiber, that didn't originate from industry. Actually, government was at the root of that, and it developed these technologies often at universities, in a relatively safe environment where you could explore at a small scale, protect it. Actually, heritage or your museums or libraries could be such an environment too, because it's government funded but somewhat autonomous. It is publicly funded too, and it has a limited scope. So it means that it doesn't have to include everybody for everything. It has a limited scope where it can explore this new technology. It needs government funding and government protection, and the business interest needs to grow over time, seeing that it works in this protected environment, and then you can attach new functionalities to it. And I think reinventing things from scratch here is bound to fail. Because especially here where you already have those platforms, which will fight to the death to prevent this from emerging. So you need to find a viable way around those large corporations that will try to protect that turf. That's only the government can do that, but only an ambitious and patient government can do that.
Yeah.
And then
If
later on
they
you
want
can
to do-
expand it.
If they want to do it,
they
because
want.
we
Yeah.
had this European interoperability frameworks in the past, and the Microsoft, they didn't like it. It was putting too much pressure on them. And then there was a new framework that was a bit more flexible for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So they also have to take into account of the Microsoft, the Googles and stuff.
I
so,
think-
huh?
I fully
It's a very
agree.
good point.
I fully agree that, you know, I've run innovation in a multinational for a while, and you're absolutely right. I actually did it on the sales side. Well, bound to fail. The only reason why innovation was there, because look at us doing innovation. That was the only reason. But if you say it can only be done by governments, I disagree on the word only. I agree that the government is an environment and universities is an environment to, you know,
For safe development.
Fostering.
for safe
Fostering,
development,
yeah.
you know,
Hatching.
the lab, hatching, blah, 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 blah. But then at some point, and this is why I'm constantly thinking implementation, because I do innovation right now as we speak, implementing it. And it's almost like artificial insemination, because you bring something in, we bring something in, and there will be a heck of a resistance. And you have to do it in a way, and that's why I'm thinking you need to bring on different levels of people to be able to do that and to understand where they operate, and not only about governments or only about schools or businesses or whatever, but you have to have a good view of when you bring this on, what kind of resistance will it bring up? And you will only get that from the people who will give it. So if let's forget the kids. Let's bring in this room, we are here with 5 plus a few more women, only women. Story will be different.
Yeah.
Story will be different, and not so much in the end game, because you know the end game how the design of the end game will be, we will not be able to really envision that now, because halfway we will find out
But
that we can do it better.
it could be some past dependency. You may have different end games in the end.
No, but I fully agree that there are much more views and stuff, but when I read this Data Act stuff with these points, and I came to the same conclusion, this is all about openness and open standards use instead of tying people into platforms. This is a good step, I think, from a governmental. It opens up the possibility to bring a solution like Solid or Post platforms in the arena, I think. It helps at least.
But you need a very bold government. This is not what they are doing now, connecting the platforms with each other, is typically the weak accommodating approach that will perhaps optimize, if you want to call it optimization, but will never bring forth systems change.
No, I agree.
Because it's a shy, if you wish, how shall I put it, cowardly government.
But you might have a look at these specific points from the Data Act now, and I was exactly wondering, is this going to require something like Solid, or can it still be these weak forms? And it's interesting.
I fully agree on that. The only thing is, and it's not only governments, you said this needs transparency. So you really have to have a very strong government, because they need to be transparent.
And to live up to their own standards.
And that is, so I personally believe that there is a higher chance to find that transparency in a commercial environment where people need the transparency to thrive. I don't know exactly.
How about Linus? Was Linus a good example? Because there they wanted everything open. Did they eventually defeat Windows? I think they had some success, but they didn't really become the standard.
No, so well, what becomes the standard is also, there's so many dynamics that are interacting there. But just coming back to transparency, I ran a project in a commercial firm on transparency. I thought, well guys, this is going to save us millions. This is going to be, everyone was yay, and it didn't work. How come? Got a lot of resistance out of the blue.
You're talking about change management, what's called in MBA studies. So change management by itself is a wonderful thing. It's about balancing forces, pro, con, whatever. But yeah, this is a big change. But container innovation in this container in transport industry probably also was quite a challenge. How to implement it? Yeah, it was done eventually. So if we go in smart way, we can manage. And speaking about government, I already spoke with European Parliament member, Paul Tang guy, and he invited me to a couple of conferences from which I concluded that yes, these politicians, they're very much occupied with the idea, what do we do with Facebook? The only thing that, I would like to join forces. One of the reasons why I assembling you guys, at some moment, when I go myself to Paul Tang, I'm just strange guy from Soviet Union. But the more people we have from different industries, the more chance Paul Tang will say, oh, something interesting. So we get the guy on board. He's quite young, ambitious, and he.
So you're basically taking the exact same approach that I just.
Yeah. So let's get this guy into our loop, and we are in European Parliament. Okay, one step further. And also this European project, for example, now they are forced by European Commission to implement data space, and European has issued what is data space. So again, if our group managed to persuade European is a good idea, yeah, we have a good example of implementing at European level project with data space. Good. And then we see the result, and we can then export it to construction industry, education, etc. So yeah, that's my way. So for me, it's not about technology. For me, it's about uniting people from different industries. Say, guys, I think you all see your benefits. Let's work together. So uniting people, that's what we need to do. It's like good also with you.
Is it okay if I bring on some young, smart people?
Yeah.
Female, male?
Any. Black, white, whatever you want.
Green?
Not
Data
green.
space?
Well, that we need to so it's about organizational innovation. It's not about technical innovation.
No,
so it's purely organizational innovation project, guys. So let's.
Technique will solve itself.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
it's extremely difficult by itself.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, above this complicated technology, we have complicated relations, and that's where my biggest concern. We need to bring people in, and
And I have another question. Are there scenarios other than solid distribution, pods for everyone, every digital twin, whatever, that still are according to the Data Act in the end? Suppose that they tell Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. As a regulation that they always have to make it possible for any people who put in data there to know what is in there.
Finish the meeting. I just have to go.
To actually know which data is in exactly, that they have to publish that in a formalized way, maybe as the LinkedIn ontology. They have to show that they cannot keep data about you other than it is specified in that thing, that you can take out your data and put it in a future Facebook. That wouldn't require solid, right? Because it would require pods, but at least the platforms are still in there, but you have the ability to know exactly what they know about you. Take it out, put it somewhere else if you're not happy, for instance. Is that also a solution halfway, in a sense?
I don't know. Somehow, I'm not sure I understood the question. The way. Yeah. So it's. Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I didn't understand you.
Okay. Well, at the moment, one of the ideas is you have your own pod.
Yeah.
We have a pod. An asset has a pod. We call it digital twin, for the data aspect.
Yep.
Everything has its own pod, and it decides for the functionality he needs.
Okay.
Not Facebook or whatever, or another Facebook or anyway. So that is one approach, but it's difficult because you have almost to fight the platforms, and this could be a difficult war.
Yes.
So, looking at the Data Act, if you look at those items that should be fulfilled, it should already be enough almost if every such platform is now obliged to tell you as a person exactly what they have about you, to specify that in a formal way. You can retrieve that information, you can say, I want to have it deleted now, everything, I want to take it, and I want to be able to put it into another system.
So question is, could be the Data Act and this ideas approaches, there could be solutions?
Are there other solutions that are not that fighting the platforms?
I have it's my intuitive feeling that this approach is dead end.
It's not enough, you mean?
It's not enough. And also good news that we discovered in different industries, specifically in hotels, in mobile operators and banks, we discovered a way how this could be developed without push from the government, without push from the European Parliament, whatever, because it will be commercially interesting for banks, mobile operators and hotels. So we, specifically hotels look to me like the most low-hanging fruit, because we come to them and say, guys, you're spending now 20% on booking.com. What about 5? Wow, 20% of the whole hotel market is huge price to win. So there is a commercial interest to go there. So that's my idea, that we will find commercially viable projects, go with them, and then the system will start rolling. So that's the way. And we will not touch Facebook at first. And when the governments will see that, oh, it works in mobile operators, banks, whatever, oh, how it works? Interesting, data space through Solid? And then they will pick it up and say, yeah, Facebook, now you have to follow it. So it will be pressure later on, but first we can demonstrate projects which can survive without government support. That will be my approach.
I really like the hotel approach.
Hotel approach is beautiful.
But because there is already an initiative going that I'm
But it's a separate discussion.
on the site involved with. But I think we could really leverage from that.
Yeah, for sure.
As an example for the others as metaphor
Yeah.
also.
But okay, guys, we switch a little bit to the innovation management, etc. Coming back to data space, probably it's time to conclude. So, do you feel it's the data space might look like that? Does it make sense in general?
Do you still think that we don't?
Well, I would like to get a kind of explicit.
Right,
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
I think at the moment, but maybe there are many interpretations of data space.
Yeah.
Right?
It's one of them. I fully agree.
We have this principle before we start link data talking. We have this principle of fair data. You know it. It's at least stuff is findable, maybe in the cloud. It's accessible. You can do identification, authorization, authentication stuff. Then it should be interoperable. Make use of same formats or APIs or query language and stuff. And then it should be reusable in the sense that it is well defined. The semantics is defined. What's in there? By ontology, schemas, whatever. Well, these layers. And I'm always wondering, when we talk about data space, how far is the data space? Is it just some piece of the cloud in Europe? Is it a piece of the cloud in Europe, but now sticking to certain formats for the data or APIs? Or is it even something on top of that with some clearly defined semantics by standards? It can be many things, from a low level, just a place in the cloud, till something that is specified by format, syntax, semantics, even pragmatics. What can you do with it? Right? It can be so many things.
I agree. Michel, my suggestion would be, this is a kind of a good subject for the next round of discussion. Probably if I come to you and we sit down. And I like this direction because now we go to some really nitty-gritty stuff and we need to go there. So probably it could be one of the outcomes of this discussion. Okay, we have to discuss that. And so, okay, let's go fair approach, just to remember. And let's talk about it.
And at the moment, when we have issues with our own data at TNO, it's always about the F, about the findability. It means that we put our data not on an American server, because of defense regulations or whatever. That is the issue. So if we talk data spaces there, it's only about where is the data stored, under which control.
Where is that freaking server?
But there are so many layers on top that could be involved in a data space, a European data space. What does it mean? What do you specify? And
I have some sample answer, but again, I don't want to go on.
No, okay, let's put a separate issue.
I really would like to talk to you about it. It's a very good subject. Okay, guys, those who are online, do you have your own kind of questions to to talk further for the next meetings, whatever? Any comments?
No, I think it pretty much covers the things that I had in mind. Sort of, I was also wondering about what it should look like, the data space. But is it something that we should have an idea of what it should be and sell that to others, or do we have a steering role in that, or do we want to follow on that?
Good question. It's I'm just thinking aloud. Probably it's a good idea to give a name to this task force. Post-platform data space, whatever. so that okay, we have kind of identity, and so we can refer to this task force. Okay, we discussed these things and we had these ideas, and then we can go around, shop around, and like Sibrin said, yeah, he can bring more people. So just spread this idea, and I will make video out of it. So it might be kind of because data space is extremely important, and other aspects also important, like e-karma. Yeah, e-karma by itself is a big subject, so probably we need to discuss separately. But I would like to really dive into this data space and try to look from different angles so that we know most of the answers. So for example, if you talk to, I don't know, European as example, because I'm still under the impression of this conference we had months ago, yeah, we need to find a good solution for European, and yeah, we have a candidate, so we really need to present this candidate in the best possible way. Yeah, so task force is probably first thing which comes to mind. Pavel, what do you think?
About the task force or about Europeana?
Yeah, what do we do next?
I don't know what to do next. I do think I agree with you that Europeana is a good starting point for several reasons. One reason is that I think it addresses well what Martin said, that if we expect some resistance in the commercial sector, then maybe in the culture and heritage sector there will be less resistance. I don't know if Anna will agree with me. I would say maybe there will be less resistance, there will be difficulties, but more in form of lack of knowledge or sometimes lack of motivation, but not in form of active resistance, because our cultural heritage institutions do not have those business models which can be disrupted with this kind of innovation. That's a good starting point, but then interestingly, cultural heritage organizations can participate in a lot of business related data spaces and domains, because as you said, they have valuable data for tourism, they have valuable data for hospitality, they have valuable data for education. So I think in this sense, cross-domain approaches to data spaces will be can be very interesting drivers for success. Also interestingly, in good timing, we do have the first kind of funding opportunity there that we discussed with Anna and with a couple of other partners. So we could also already try to to launch a request for funding initiative and to see what happens there. Yeah, that doesn't answer your question how to proceed in the large scheme of things, but yeah, I'm taking it to my direction, which is interesting to me.
Well, I'm also in culture and heritage with this Easy Travel platform, so I have some passion for that, and so probably it's one of the good points. But still, I like the idea to discuss it further with Cadaster, because essentially Cadaster was the first organization which triggered this discussion, and somehow I feel that it's very interesting there, because like in hotels, in real estate, we can save a lot of money to all stakeholders who dance around real estate. Real estate is expensive, so even if you cut the couple percent, it will be a lot of money for everybody. So probably it could be viable also commercially in real estate, so that's interesting. I know construction also sounds like something important for me, because in construction industry, as far as I understood in September on this conference on semantics, construction companies, they also deal with very expensive things, and they have to organize a lot of interaction along the value chain. So different companies should look always shadow of another company. Okay, what do we have here? So they need this data space. So one building, and then very many partners deal with this building. Construct it, provide electricity, whatever. So it's nice for them to have this building as a Google Doc. So when somebody does something, other parties see what happened. So I feel that this, construction is also data space oriented.
I see a connection there. We just won a European tender, not a project, but a tender for European Commission itself, right? So you cannot do your own stuff, but you have to do what they want. On they call it EBL. It's building logbooks. DBL, digital building logbooks. So there's a task there to develop an ontology for a building based on IFC, based on the bot ontology, all that stuff. In linked data as a European blueprint that then member countries can use for their own purposes. They're not even obligatory. So it's a step in the direction of linked data. Never is mentioned solid, but there is a task, future developments and stuff. So there I can actually put in the next more distributed versions of such a system.
We can land the data inside the building, and then everybody will see it, and it will become a data space visible for all partners who read, write, change something there.
Yeah.
And so real estate sounds like a very interesting subject, again, to be discussed.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, shall we wrap up?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we have some ideas. Thank you very much, and we will continue in couple industries like that, culture and heritage, construction I like very much, cadaster, and yeah, of course education with RNMAs, and see how it's going. But and from time to time we'll call you to this kind of discussions and share some progress. Hopefully we'll have it. And yeah.
I think
Yes, Sibyl?
my system, sorry to say it that way, my system says we need to get together to identify exactly these, I would almost say, contexts where we could work, where we think with our thought on, you know, especially you've been thinking of this a long time, almost a basic SWOT analysis.
Okay.
What you know, let's say musea, what can we do there? How can we do that? What will we run against? Who are the stakeholders? Who, etc., so that you get a picture. Okay, if we talk musea and we want to do something, we have a picture, a shared picture. If we say hotels, what does that mean? Can we do that? How can we do that? What is the added value of going to hotels now?
But also, when I listen to you, and well, you're a new person here,
Yeah.
so you're just a couple days in, and I feel you're anxious to learn a lot. I have to feed you with a lot of information,
Yeah.
which will eventually answer many of these questions. But you're right, this kind of change management approach is needed here, just to understand all the stakeholders, forces,
Yeah.
where it all goes. So, but we'll talk to you a lot because
Yeah, give me. I want a lot. I am fully in.
thank you.
Yes.
And
And if you don't want me in anymore, tell me.
oh, it's okay, it's okay. I still need you to bring me back to Hilversum.
There's a good train system in Holland.
Thank you, thank you. Good. Okay, guys. Then, thank you very much, and I will create a video out of it, and probably some minutes, etc., share with you, and to be continued.
Much appreciated.
So, goodbye.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Goodbye. Can I finish the?
Yep.